Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. Welcome to this Women in DevOps Fireside Chat. I am your moderator. I'm Melissa McKay. I am Head of Developer Relations at JFrog, and I'll be talking to these wonderful panelists today. We'll be covering three topics. The first one is going to be the role of AI in modern SDLC and how AI is transforming development practices and what it means for DevX. That's going to be an interesting topic. I'm looking forward to that. The second one is going to be about empowering developer productivity and talking about developer happiness. And then the next is security in the age of AI, balancing innovation and security in AI-driven development. That's a hot topic as well, and it's very important for us to cover. For audience members that are viewing through LinkedIn Live, feel free to submit questions as we navigate these topics. We'll save some time for QA and at the end as time allows us. Hopefully you have some thoughts that you can share with us as well. That would be really cool. I have three panelists today I want to introduce you to now. We have Krishna Nadaminti, a software engineering manager at NVIDIA. Hi, Krishna.
Hey, everyone.
We have Shubha Rao, Director of Solution Engineering at JFrog. Hello, Shubha.
Hey, everyone. Hello.
And we have Andrea Griffiths, a Senior Developer Advocate at GitHub. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, panel. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. I know that we're going to get excited about this first topic, so I want to dive in right away, right now, about the role of AI in modern software development lifecycle. We're all, familiar with engineering, software engineering, have been, have our hands dirty in development. And during prep for this call, we had some interesting discussions as well. And I know, Andrea, I think the topic that you brought up is probably the one we're going to discuss, the most. It's good to start with. We're all struggling with it. It's a big one. Will AI enable or replace software engineers? Huge topic.
Yes, massive controversy, right? I'm sure that the people who are watching have opinions, trademark. And I'd love to hear what folks are thinking here. But I think for us, and of course, I work at GitHub, but I have my personal opinion from decades of being in this industry. And what we're seeing right now is unbelievable. Like the way that AI is transforming software development life cycles is incredible. Take, for instance, GitHub Copilot. Well, I had to show this shirt because it's one of my favorites. This tool helping us not only write code faster, but finish tasks at a speed that is never been seen before. So we're seeing AI popping everywhere, whether it be in security, whether it be in creating our smarter CI/CD pipelines, automatic testing. AI is everywhere. And that question comes up a lot, right? So are we obsolete now? Are we going to be replaced? And my honest opinion is not even close. And every day I get even more convinced that is the actually complete opposite. In my opinion, AI is an enabler, a force multiplier, right? It's going to take that grunt work out of your plate so that all of you brilliant software developers can focus on those big problems. And beyond that, and adding the force and job multiplier, honestly, I think it's making coding less intimidating and giving access to people that maybe never considered careers in tech. So I don't see it as it's going to take us out of a job. I think it's going to change, obviously, the way that we're working for the better. And the best teams, the teams that I'm seeing being super successful when it comes to artificial intelligence adoption, be it in coding or any of the workflows of work, is the ones that are finding a good balance of like how they're vibing. I hate to say co-vibing, but how they're vibing together, right? How they're working, incorporating AI and thinking critically, thinking domain know-how, thinking about those things that are so fundamentally human that AI can't touch. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be able to replace. So I'm team, no, augment, not replace.
I think you're exactly right, Andrea. I have a similar opinion. I want to hear from our other two panelists as well. But this brings me back to the old days when you would go to the library and you had to learn how to search for content in the library. You have this huge building full of books. All the knowledge is there, but you have to know how to get to it. And I feel like that's what AI is doing for us right now. Like all that knowledge is right there at our fingertips, but the challenge is figuring out how to suck it out of the ether in an appropriate way, making sure that we've, covered all of our bases and we're asking the right questions. So yeah, huge. I liked also what you said about giving a bigger reach to people who may not, be in this industry yet, but now they can be. They feel more enabled to do so, and it's just leveling all of us up. Yeah. Krishna, what do you think from your experience at NVIDIA? How do you feel about this topic?
Yes, I totally echo your sentiments here. And it is amazing how it transformed every aspect of SDLC today, right? Yes, coding is a big area where you have a tireless peer programming buddy, right? As a new junior developer, you may not have like senior mentors with you all the day, but now you have that on day to day, and how every accuracy, everything is improving day to day. To build that confidence is just amazing, right? And adding to Andrea, yes, it is definitely saving a lot of time, reducing toil on repetitive tasks on day to day. So that is definitely a innovation boost and saving time for developers, right? And it is also like in tests, right? People used to sit and write unit tests on for each and every program they write. Now it's like we have detection models that can detect even before the failures happen, right? We can analyze the entire code base, like generating test suits, and there are so many tools that came in the entire CI/CD pipeline process too, right? So there are every aspect, design process, right? Like how easily you can. It is not about drawing flowchart diagrams anymore. Like I know how much time I used to spend personally on like just creating designs. On like now, oh my God, it is such a time saver in every aspect of SDLC. And I would love to coming to like replacing developers or not. Again, yes, it is definitely force multiplier. And I would like to quote Jensen here. He always says, AI won't replace you, but the people who use AI will replace you. And I can see it day to day on like every aspect of what we do here, right? It is so like, there is no manual debugging, tedious test writing, and then you can see the teams who are actually adopting this, how fast they are able to deliver time to market, the lead times, right? So for me to summarize that, I would say AI is making developers like the architects of like the AI-driven world, right? And then with as long as they have the right tool sets, understand like how the developments work, and they're empowered to do this, right? It is not about just shipping code anymore. It is like shipping innovation in the future, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's a huge transformation on things we did not imagine 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Good points, Krishna. There were a couple of things you said that really stood out to me. Well, think about, like taking away a lot of the churn. Think about what the IDE did for us years ago, right? Now we aren't stuck writing boilerplate programs anymore. And now it's one step further. And you mentioned pair programming. So I was really lucky in my career that was one of the first teams I joined, was a team way back when that actually did extreme programming. And that was one of the aspects of it, was pair programming. Now think about if you said AI is like a tireless, pair, someone, you can always talk to and get information from. But think about it like that, though. As much as you would trust another human being, you kind of need that same guard with AI as well. Like, because, someone could be tired or just, maybe misheard you or misunderstood you. And maybe the communication gets a little off. And I feel like that can happen with AI right now as well. So as far as replacing engineers, I think we still need the people that can validate, evaluate the data that is coming back from the AI and be able to say, oh, no, that's a little off. I'm going to ask the question again in a different way. Or, yeah, that sounds about right. That's what I remember to move forward. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, good points. Also, like one of the very first implementations I saw of AI helping was not writing test code, but actually documenting code. I thought that was a really interesting use case, and it actually succeeded in documenting a particular method that had a bug in it. And that was how it was caught, was because the documentation wasn't correct. Like, no, that's not what that function is supposed to do, but that's exactly what it was doing, and it was a bug. So pretty interesting implementations there. Shiva, if indeed we aren't replaced, Can you speak to us more about the ways that we can actively use AI to improve the whole DevOps lifecycle? Give us some examples of that.
Sure. So first of all, I do agree with Andrea and Krishna, right? It's definitely an enabler for us to get things done better. Talking to customers, one of the things that I always hear from the market is about developer productivity or developer experience, right? So it's all about how can you enable the developers to get things done as quickly as possible within their IDE instead of having to go to multiple places to get the same data and then spend time on understanding how to consume the data. This is where the biggest problem is. Right. So where AI can help throughout the SDLC process is definitely in your IDE. Andrea can talk all about it. I'm sure Copilot is very, very helpful. That's one of the reasons why we also integrated with Copilot, and that's been resonating very well with many of our customers, right? You want everything in place in one UI as much as possible for code snippet help. But also to help from a security perspective, right? Every company has their own set of rules and compliances that they have to follow. So this is one place where AI can be very, very helpful. The second place where I'm seeing AI can be helpful is just from if you take a step back and look at the different tools that are part of an SDLC chain today, it's just mind-boggling, right? So you have, anytime I talk to a customer or people here, they say that I have anywhere between 5 to 7 just security tools, okay, throughout my SDLC. And now add that with the different pipelines that they have, maybe different tools for each part of the pipeline, and then they have different integrations. So the amount of data that you end up having is enormous. So now you have all this data, but okay, how do I make an informed decision that matters to my process, to my company, to my compliances, is where the biggest problem is. And this is where I've seen a huge help from AI, wherein we can aggregate all the data, and now you're asking AI, okay, tell me what it means, right? So this is super helpful. The third part that I've seen is it's AI to an extent, but also getting the right amount, right type of data is on the deployment side, right? You want to be able to understand, okay, I have this artifact or I have this particular version. I want to understand where it has been deployed, how is it being used, and stuff like that. So these, in a way, are like the three main places where AI has been super, super helpful.
Amazing. And I see more coming, right? As we're getting used to it and learning this new way of interacting with this information, we're going to have more and more come down the pipe.
Yes.
That's a good segue. We all touched a little bit on developer productivity, and that's an excellent time to segue into our next topic about developer productivity. Just to comment on your last, what you said, Shubha, what a nice thing to be able to do as a developer, to be able to ask, hey, I'm looking for a package that does a certain thing, and then be able to be given that information. And then not only that, is this a package I'm allowed to use, that is allowed by my company policy? So these just make things so much easier, very cool to be able to do that. Than what so often happens is just, find the first thing you find when you're searching for the package, commit code with it, and then find out later in the development cycle that security did not like that choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I can see lots of improvements there coming. Krishna, at NVIDIA, do you have some advice for developers in our audience that are looking to learn to navigate AI? Does NVIDIA offer anything?
Oh, yes, I sure want to get to it. But I want to level set on day-to-day as a leader responsible for developer productivity. What do I see, right? For me, my goal is to remove that friction for the developers and get out of their way, right? If I'm responsible for, say, this 100 tools in chat, I don't want people to ask me questions about it. I want to make it so solid for them that can make them happy and they don't have to contact me for it, right? And on the same lines, for the tooling we provide, right? I can talk about few quick ones that we use and what we provide. Lately, yes, we have GitHub Copilot too. That Cursor has been is a new ecosystem that has been building, that has been forked out of VS Code, which has been being widely adopted because it is able to automatically run command, fix linting errors, and basically pushing AI capabilities. So that I have seen a trend being adapted with Cursor. And we are also at the JFrog event, so I want to definitely talk about the partnership we have with JFrog, and what we just released last week is NIMs, right? NIMs are the packaged AI models into optimized containers that can help in seamless development. So this is our NVIDIA inference models, NIMs, right? So we integrated these NIMs models into Artifactory as a package. Now, as a containers, they can download directly from the repositories. So this is also, like, I think, adding more to the development lifecycle. So you already are connected to Artifactory, and now you can pull the NIM directly and run your models. So that was one. And other than that, I would definitely suggest build.nvidia.com has all the NIMs, API catalogs, developer tools, frameworks, bunch of them. Like, that is the home source of truth for all the NVIDIA products, build.nvidia.com. So I would definitely recommend developers to check it out, because there are different aspects based on what your needs are. Lightweight AI development solutions, like any pre-trained vision models, like RAG, there are different tutorials there. And one thing I can point out is there is a Jetson Nano developer kit. Like, it's a playground where, like, you can just start with a kit with a tutorial, and you can start, training AI models in like hours, not months, right? So yeah, and we have a deep learning institute too, where we have like paid, free, all types of courses for different AI skills. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome.
That's awesome.
NIM announcement was pretty exciting. I mean, it sure is nice to not have to start from scratch, and to know you're getting something that is valuable up front, and be able to just start your development without having to worry about a lot of those details in the beginning. Also, there's so much information out there right now. And so, audience, pay attention, because I think Krishna provided some really solid resources here. With the ton of stuff available out there, it's kind of hard to navigate sometimes and find the most credible resources. So this sounds like a really good place for someone to start and actually get some hands-on experience as well.
Absolutely. Melissa, if I may add something about GitHub there.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I'm like, Andrea, I know you're itching to get in.
I was busted. Yes. Especially because you mentioned such amazing, whether it be standalone products that are out in market now, or, like the partnerships, which for us, our partner ecosystem is one of our greatest strengths. But one thing that I want to just make sure that I share, because I think this is something that's making AI particularly more special within the GitHub ecosystem, right? We're not looking at AI as a standalone feature, meaning we have this product, whether it be a VS Code extension or part of a security package. We're moving AI into the fabric of our entire ecosystem, our entire platform. The idea here is to impulse developer productivity and transform how developers are interacted with every component of the software development lifecycle. So whether it be repository intelligence, I love what you mentioned earlier about being able to ask, what's a better package to use here? Or give me a best practice that is going along with what's said by my organization. Like, the breakage of that learning curve when a new engineer joins your team, when you're using, for example, GitHub Copilot, it's unbelievable. The way that we're enhancing workflows and CI/CD, automatically recommending better security checks, optimizations, and all of these things based on your technology stack. Like, we have such an incredible advantage because we're an entire ecosystem. So you're able to take advantage of the artificial intelligence being applied in an intelligent way that goes beyond being a standalone tool and being an integral part of your software development life cycle. So I'm super excited for the things that we have coming up as a company, because with Copilot for pull requests, it's going to be a huge thing that's going to impact the way that developers are shipping code every day. Talking about things like predictive security, and there is a lot that's on the pipeline that's only going to make this ecosystem even stronger. So I'm super excited for that. And on the resources, I'll be remiss if I didn't shout out. My team has been creating some amazing content for all levels. So we're taking a spectrum of like, yes, this is for new developers as well as folks who've been in industry for 20 years, but are just now adopting this tool. I think it's important to include everyone. So there is a series as a GitHub for Copilot for beginners that's going to dive into some more advanced workflows as the series progresses. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can take a look at all these programs. They're putting a lot of thought into what developers really need. And I mean, we are in such a privileged position because we get to work with millions of developers every day. So beyond looking at standalone products, being part of the GitHub ecosystem is huge. And I think it's going to really impact the way that we continue to create and ship code. So I had to share my team's amazing content. Thank you for the chance.
Yes, absolutely. More, credible resources for people to go look up and start with. And there were a couple things you mentioned. One is a segue into our third topic, so I'll wait on that for a second. But something you mentioned was you called out like the actual use case, like what can I actually do with AI? What is it?
Yes.
I think there's a lot more learning that we need to have there because so many of us, and I can speak for myself and most of the developers that I work with, it's new. It's new to them. It's a different way of thinking. And it's like, I used to chuckle when I heard these people saying that, we're just going to need to learn how to do prompt engineering. Like that's a whole thing. And I didn't really take that seriously until I realized, how differently the data that I get back or responses I get back rely on how I've asked the question and how I've thought about this problem that I'm trying to solve. So do you think we can do more there? Because I think I'm really curious to see how developers that are introduced to this way of working later in their careers versus developers that are going to be coming right out of the gate, starting with this tool set immediately in their toolbox.
Oh, that's such a valid point because we are moving towards a more agentic way of working, right? So we're working with prompts more than being able to in natural language, using, for example, Copilot, you can speak. I want you to look here and do this or suggest that. And that's an incredible advantage, right? But yes, it comes with a learning curve. I think I personally, my experience just talking to developers, I do notice a bit of apprehension and a bit more resistance for people who have been in the industry a lot longer. The eagerness to adopt these new tools is usually, I'm one of those shiny new toy. I want to try it. How is it going to make my life better? So we do see that skepticism coming from some of the senior levels, but the proof is in the pudding, right? One piece of advice that I give teams that are looking to adopt this type of technologies into the way that they work is to don't pound it down the throat of the senior people first. Lean onto your early adopters, lean on the enthusiastic, shiny new toys people, because these are the folks that are going to have those aha moments that they will then share internally within their teams and prove the use case, right? Then I'm going to pay attention because this is actually beyond a tweet that I've read and it's telling me that this is going to make me go so much faster. So when it comes to working from a agentic and a more prompt-centric, it's going to be a natural mind shift. I think that this is the way that the industry is moving. But again, cautiously and understandably, we need to have the knowledge. Understanding how to do prompt engineering is not just learning how to ask AI to do things for you. And this is where, again, we will not be replaced because we need this. We need the background. We need the understanding. You need to have a basic understanding of data structures, basic understanding of the syntax, so that you know that these things that Copilot spitting out are not just, okay, maybe not the best, or maybe we could use an alternate route. So I think there's a lot that we could be doing. That fear is completely understandable, and I almost welcome it. I think it's great. We should be skeptical of tools like this. But once you start utilizing them, once you start shifting your mindset and giving it a chance, because it is a completely way of thinking about how you're going to develop. I've noticed developers internally at GitHub are becoming prompt-centric developers. And these are people that have been in the industry for decades, and they can whip out, any kind of database and through 3 lines of code, they can do it. But now they're seeing the value of maybe I don't need to work that hard. So it's a mindset adjustment. I think it's natural for teams to go through that sort of resistance points, but it's not going anywhere. As everyone here in this call can probably attest, I love what you mentioned, Melissa. You're like, if you told me about it a year ago or whenever they started this first conversation, you're like, yeah, sure. It's a thing. And now guess what? It's very much a part of the software development cycle, and it's not going anywhere. So I welcome folks to have the skepticism, but I think that we do need to research more, and starting with basics is so important, having those fundamentals, but then being open to understanding prompt engineering techniques, using cookbooks, make your team's life easier. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. There are things that are working. So just make your developers happy. That's my whole thing.
Exactly.
You may have a car, but you should know how to steer it.
Hey,
Exactly.
love that. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the key words that you used was security. And I think that that's a really important one to address during this session, and maybe the source of some skepticism or some, suspicion on using these tools. Shuba, I'd like to start with you. Can you talk to us a little bit about the things we should be watching for from a security perspective, diving into using AI?
Definitely. This is something that I get asked pretty common. I was at a dinner last week or a couple of weeks back, and there were a few engineers there in the meeting and in the dinner, and they were like, I want all these tools. There are so many nice ones that I can use to actually help me build faster. I don't know why my company is not just allowing me to use it, right? Hold on. There are a few things here. So this is the good and bad about AI, that you always have to be careful on what data. Even the prompts actually make a huge difference, right? As you said, as developers, sometimes we don't understand the security aspect of it. When you ask questions, whatever you're giving or providing input to the AI tool, that is also data at the end of the day for the AI tool, right? So that is one thing that you have to be careful about. The other thing is, whatever you are getting back from the AI tool, this is what both Krishna and Andrea mentioned it, right? You have the data, but how to use it? Is it the right way to use it? Is it the right thing to do? That is where, as a developer, our experience comes into picture, right? Yes, I got this code snippet from any AI tool that I'm using, but hold on. These AI tools have just come into picture in the last few months or a couple of years at the most, right? They've all been trained on data that was fed to them from the last decade, and you don't know what the basis of this data is. Right. Is the data itself something that someone has taken a look at, vetted it, and only then provided it as the input for the AI model to be trained? You don't know. So you have to be a bit skeptic here, but the skepticism has to be more from a security perspective, right? I have this data, let me go ahead and validate it and make sure that the dependencies that it's talking about, the versions of the dependencies that it's talking about, and even the way the code has been written, right? Is there things like out of bounds or memory issues, or there are a lot of things that we come across when you write code as well that you have to keep in mind. This is why you have your SAST tools, your SEA tools, all these different security mechanisms that come into picture. So that's one thing that we have to definitely keep in mind. One other thing that I'll add is, when an AI tool generates a code, it doesn't have the background information, right? As a developer, that's what you're bringing to the table. You have the information about what the project is, what is the target that you want to get to, and this is where your expertise comes into picture. So this is definitely, security is the biggest aspect. AI is good. It's an enabler. It's definitely not something that can replace us developers, because we have all the data from compliance, security, the background information about the project, everything, right? We are the experts here. So AI will probably get there, but it's still some ways to go. But this is where I see, from a security perspective, we have to be very careful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And even if, like, security to me encompasses even more than like introducing vulnerabilities too. It could be like, what about copyright infringement? What about
exactly
things to be concerned about bringing into your corporate environment that you're really not allowed to use, but that fact is kind of hidden from you maybe when you're getting out.
Exactly, right. If you look at even the regions per se, EMEA has a lot more compliance that you have to keep in mind. What was it? I think I was talking to a customer about CRA, and then there is DORA. There are a lot of these compliances that you also have to keep in mind when you're using a set of code or when you're publishing or whatever you're doing in your SDLC cycle, SDLC, you have to keep compliance in mind. And these compliances also vary across regions, across companies, across verticals as well, right? These are the things that an AI tool would not be aware of. So this matters quite a lot.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Remember, and I'm going to relate this a little bit to like when containers became so popular, right? Then we started learning, oh, well, okay, you can grab any container you want from a public repository. But what about who made it? Are we looking at who created it to begin with? Are we looking at the internals of it? Are we looking at what exactly happens when we run that container? Are we paying attention to that stuff? Then the next step was like, some solutions were implemented where Docker Hub, for example, decided to basically anoint some containers as these are safe, these are trusted, and they spent a little time vetting these things. Krishna, do you think this is the direction NIM might be going, like being able to provide something that is trust, has a level of trust that has already established some of these safeguards in the beginning?
Yeah. You already know how far we came in the container space too on adding security in the pipelines, right? So definitely all these are like part of this building blocks. Right. And innovation versus security risk is always like big challenge. And I'm sure you all have this common use case where engineers are unintentionally putting into confidential data into the AI systems.
Exactly.
So there is only so much you can control, and the risks are too high for data leaks or any reputational damages for all the innovation that is happening. Right. So I can share some things like what we do. In case it helps. Right. We rely a lot on homegrown tools, because we are AI, building AI too. So we have like our own ChatGPT interfaces where we can link to all our models. And now we have more options, not only one ChatGPT option, but you have multiple options. Okay. So I always encourage my team to like, hey, let's use this internal tool, because I know exactly where the infrastructure lies, what are the data retention, where like data integrity and all those details. So I'm like, so please use these tools, right? So that is one thing I always keep reminding them, because I'm still accountable for anything that leaks. So that's one. And also how we are enabling them, right? In the aspect of like the happiness you spoke about, Melissa, too, I think this is it is not about just providing tools, giving direction. A lot comes with culture of like, security driven, like, oh, security is your priority. And I remember in one of my companies, we used to also say security can make and break a company, right? It is that big deal. So it is about how we are enabling those practices, and while building a culture as leaders to see, hey, we want to empower you to use more AI, right? And our CIO, Sonu Nayar, he says like, oh, AI is not for just AI team, it's for everybody. Right. So because now everybody has to be thinking on different aspects, how they can accelerate what they do. So one is definitely creating that happiness quotient I was talking about with the culture, but at the same time, educating, empowering through like security education, the culture for security, so that they can feel more confident to be like more empowered. They can take more risks on both personal and for organizational success.
Right. Yeah. There's interesting things. My mind is going crazy with all these things, because I'm just remembering, like, even the younger generation, how they're going to approach this, and whether security is top of mind for them. And I know it isn't, because
but it will be. I think it will be, though.
It's getting better. I think it's getting better for sure. But like, I just remember, when we get excited about things, sometimes it takes a back seat. And I remember having this conversation even with, my own kids. One of them in particular is pretty excited about coding and learning new things. And then I realized, she's sitting here on my home network, bringing in all of these packages, and I have no idea where she's getting them. Right? So I have the same feeling for, using AI. And then
Yeah.
you mentioned culture too. There's also a culture of whether or not you should use it. I'm of the opinion we should teach people how to use it effectively, but there is still a culture out there that's a little bit like, no, it's cheating. No, there are times when you should not use it for ethical reasons. And those are always interesting discussions to have, especially in academia and stuff, like whether or not you should be using these tools or how to use them in a way that isn't going to set off alarms. Yeah. Interesting things.
It's a tug of war, right? And what you mentioned about your child, like I can relate 1,000%. I feel like I'm hyper aware of these things now coming onto a teenager for sure. That old tug of war, like speed versus safety, like people are innovating now at a speed that's unreal. And yes, it poses more threats to security. And which I mentioned earlier about reputational damage and how literally you can make or destroy a company if you don't take these things into consideration. I'm optimistic because I feel like it's going to be baked into the tools that developers are using, like the way that we're integrating security into GitHub workflows, not thinking about it later, but shifting it all left. So catching issues before they hit production, right? So I'm optimistic because I think that with AI, we're empowering a generation that's going to be working with guardrails, not gates. So just guiding developers to safer practices without sort of stopping them and then going back to that tug of war that, we want to innovate fast, but we got to stop and have X, Y, or Z security reviews. Because now there's a lot of these things that we can do using AI in a safe way. So I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be baked into the way that developers work and taking security first as the de facto approach. It's not going to be, it's not my responsibility as one particular tool or one particular team, but developers, I think, are going to have to take more ownership of it because it's the only way we're going to be able to keep using and building fast.
Right. And I think there's a huge responsibility for folks like us that are talking about these things and teaching these things and possibly mentoring other engineers. We need to constantly beat this drum because I know personally through the different stages of my career, there are things that I now kind of take for granted. When I taught my kids how to drive a car, I'm like, oh, I got to go back and remember the little details that are very important when you're on the road. It's kind of the same when we talk about security. It's so much fun to get into the immediate implementations and the immediate, good feelings you get when you get something working. But then to build that culture of we need to consider security first rather than tack it on at the end.
Great point on beating the drum, Melissa. One way we also do is we literally write down number 1, security, number 2, production incidents, number 3, P0, P1s. Like what order, if you want to prioritize, this is the order. Anytime, this is your playbook.
Yes, exactly. That's really good. Really good.
Yeah, this is something that I've seen with many of the enterprise companies as well, right? Everyone wants to move very, very fast, but at the same time, optimizing the resources that you have. And how do you use those resources is the biggest thing. And with developer experience becoming the most focused approach these days in the market, Andrea, you bring up a good point, right? It's not about having gates, because having gates basically means that you're slowing down your SDLC process. Faster deployments is the number one things because it can, apart from security, how quickly can you go to the market is what is the biggest differentiator for many of the companies today, right? You have large companies which are focused on multiple products actually competing with smaller companies which are focused only on one product. But at the end of the day, you still have to balance how fast you go. So gating mechanism doesn't make sense at all. It's more about providing the information right away to the developers, to your security folks, to your DevOps people to make informed decisions is what makes a huge difference. So guardrails are definitely very important, not gates. Gating mechanism is a very bad thing. This affects your CI/CD process. This affects your developer experience as well. So that's a very good point. And it's something that every company has to have inbuilt When I talk to the security folks, one thing that they're also saying is, hey, you know what? I can bring all of these different tools, but if my development team says that they are not going to adopt to it, there is no way I can do anything about it. So this is where, right, security people, when they bring in tools, you have to make sure that yes, you are setting these rules, but these rules have to be known to people, to known to the developers, and they have to have choices on how they can navigate through this. So this is something that anyone from a security company or a security team, they have to keep this in mind. If your end user doesn't adopt it, you can have 10 different tools. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think what you said, making sure that everyone knows the rules, also making sure they know why, because developers are excellent problem solvers. And the moment we hit any kind of friction, we'll find a way around it. So I think it's really important to understand the why so that we can, monitor our own behavior a little better and maybe make better choices.
Exactly.
All right, I want to leave some time for Q&A. Those of you that are still online on LinkedIn Live, feel free to ask some questions. There's one that came in that is, I think it's more around the topic of prompt engineering, and maybe, a few of us have some advice. The question is, I always struggle how to correctly ask AI questions and to not make it too broad. Can you elaborate on that? I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, I'll let you chime in here in a second. I'm thinking this is practice for one. And then also, I think you may be talking about general LLMs. So using these huge models versus maybe a model that is restricted to a certain context. So who would like to chime in on that and give a little advice there?
Yeah, I think, and one part of what, this is also a drum that we should be beating, and we don't talk about it enough. There's a lot of confusion out there about what models should be used for what. And I think that this is a source of frustration for developers and non-developers. Anyone that's interacting with AI, they're like, well, this thing is not even close to relating to my general question. So I think it's that top of mind first. We should differentiate what it is that's going to be the best for whatever you use. And of course, from my experience, I'm going to speak of GitHub Copilot and using our coding assistant. And now we have a code completion model that's specifically based on coding repositories that are public and best practices that have been used in those repositories and code that we've seen that developers trust. So I would use that for coding, right? For more general questions, whether it be for research, I think it's important to find the tool that's going to be best. One thing that I've struggled with at the beginning of adoption of Copilot is I made my requests non-conversational enough. And you would think it would be sort of the opposite. I need to be specific and short. But that was an adoption curve for me. I needed to learn that it actually, when I approach it more conversationally, as I was talking to, I'm sitting next to Krishna and we're pair programming on this, my results, the outcome, so much better. The outputs of the models, incredible, much more targeted with much more relevancy. And I think it was the way that I was asking the questions, trying to be as, just sentence specific as possible. I wasn't giving it that broad scope that I needed. So I don't think it's obviously, yes, definitely figure out what it is that your use case is. But then I'm yet to go wrong with conversational tone when it comes to even projects and breaking down complexity, the same engineering principles. It's a big implementation. If I was going to talk to Melissa about it, how would I talk to Melissa about it, right? Yeah. Thinking about it like that, it has resulted in like my mind shifted to where now we're friends. We still fight some days. Yeah. Some days I'm still like disappointed by the outputs, but for the most part, it has definitely improved the quality of those for sure.
Yeah. My biggest learning has been being very, very specific to what we want. So it's good to take a moment to understand what exactly do we need than asking generic things like, okay, if you're asking about healthcare, in healthcare, what do I know about this ABC thing? Can you tell me about this? And one good way we can also get is like, for me, that always helps is getting bullets than like paragraphs, right? I just need the key points. I don't want to read paragraphs here. So so being specific, like all the format you want to give and like the focused area, right? Any time frame you have, that always helps my responses way better.
This I feel like it's going back to some of the Google search days, right? When we first started searching on Google, I still remember I used to give some long sentences which was vague, and you don't get the right responses.
Yeah.
It's about giving, and it's also practice. Okay, it's not like all of us can just do it the first day.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the more you understand how the algorithm works, the more you understand how the responses that you get. This is where you can hone your skills on giving the right prompts. So yeah.
I like looking for examples of prompts that people have used, like because there's things that you don't even think of. You wouldn't even have thought to ask in that way. So I love just this sharing mentality of all of us, sharing on our social media or other channels or Reddit or whatever, just examples of some of these prompts. One other comment, though, along the lines of just making sure that you're using the right model to begin with. I think I remember early on, like there were some you just would not ask math questions. It was just not their thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, making sure you're using the right resources that has the right context is good.
Yep.
All right, one other question, and we just have a couple minutes, so we'll get this one out there because I think this is important and a good one to leave our audience with. With AI automating more aspects of the SDLC, what skills do you think developers and DevOps engineers should focus on to stay ahead and remain competitive in the industry?
Yep. I would say one quick thing that comes to mind is also, again, like I said, you should know how to steer it. So the topic you just mentioned before is what to use for what. You need to know, like even in our website system, right, there are different toolkits for developers for different use cases. So that again goes back to that education part too, but it is about like understanding what you need to go to the right channels. That is like the number one that comes to me. And then the second one we already spoke about, that's prompt engineering on how you, or how you want to co-develop in your, the methods are very different, like right, using APIs versus text-based versus video-based, any base. So those are the two quick things that come to my mind.
Yeah, one thing that I can add here is everyone wants to use the tools. And as Krishna, as you mentioned, they don't know how to use it as well. So here is where companies have to be a bit more proactive in identifying what needs to be used and where it needs to be used, and also publish the compliances associated with it, right? So there has to be a directive that comes from the the CIO or the CISO in this case, to make sure that your developers are using the right data. And it is true that there is so much data today. Not understanding how to use it is the biggest issue. So if we get some directives there, that would definitely help companies.
Yeah, data fatigue for sure.
Sure.
Being inundated all the time. Yeah.
I have seen some of the tools I can remember, but you can subscribe to get AI news, right? Even they are a lot, but it's like we talk about it every day morning. You wake up, the entire world changes, right? It is that fast now. So in that world, you want to keep up. So some of these kind of online systems, like some companies, they just do this, right? They accumulate all the AI news for you and then send weekly report or daily report, whatever you want. So
written by AI also.
Written by AI, yes. So that still helps me at some sort. And we have internal channels too, where like, we have constant like knowledge fire hose coming all the time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think this is where Andrea also mentioned, right? It's about it's always a shiny new tool for engineers. It's always about, okay, this is new, that is new, how do I use it, how do I go through with it? There is so much knowledge, so there has to be something to rein it in and make sure that there is some curated data available.
For sure. I'd like to add, and as we move forward, and this might be too early advice, but let's say things to consider, because both of you brought like amazing things that developers can be thinking about to stay employable, right? And promotable and making the big bucks or the bucks. One thing that I've noticed in just on this shift, like the past 3 years, for example, using the tools that we have internally, like as we're seeing more and more AI handling implementation for certain things, right? I think the value add for developers now is like thinking more in a systems top mindset, like the people who understand like holistic high level views of how things interact, of
the box
solutions,
one thing that
of business needs. If I think to stay current with skills, it's super important to continue to ingest the information, stay curious, go ahead and experiment, but also develop a mindset of systems thinking. I think you can't go wrong with that, because then you're not pigeonholing yourself into a specific set of skills that might eventually become, I wouldn't say obsolete, but that might not be the thing that you want to focus your time. So I see it a lot of trade-off when people start thinking more in that mindset of like, okay, let's think more about relationships and trade-off analysis and how this is good for the business. And a lot of times developers like to not think about those things because we think it's not our job. but I think you tend to put yourself under a different light when you start thinking about the business more holistically and approach that systems thinking approach.
Makes sense.
One thing I just want to say is community. Because that is a big, big win for us. Like when you're trying out something, build a community where you can share tools that work where.
Definitely.
Definitely. That's a big value add.
Well, I knew this would be a very energetic and lively conversation. We could probably speak another hour on these topics. I'd love to just get you all together again and do that. But I just want to say a special thank you to our panelists for sharing your expertise with us and your time. And I sincerely appreciate these discussions. Thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us. I hope you gained a little more insight today on both the challenges and the opportunities that AI can bring us. So until the next time you join us, check out our future webinars and other online events at jfrog.com. There's a menu item there labeled resources that's packed full of stuff. It gives you a number of different things to look at that you can explore, including future webinars and also many available on-demand option as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.